Click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to never miss another update.
At the time of Prophet Musa, there lived a man named Qarun. He was one of the relatives of Prophet Musa, and he had great wealth, and he became richer with each passing day. Qarun saved huge profits. He had many gardens and built a palace-shaped house for himself, and several thousand skilled workers worked for him. The number of boxes full of jewelry was in the thousands. There was gold, silver, diamonds, and thousands of pieces of jewelry in those boxes. Wherever he wanted to go, there were powerful guards and warriors by his side. But Qarun, with all his wealth, was very stingy. No one had ever seen Qarun help the needy. When he heard the believers expecting help from him, he said sorely, "I have gained this wealth with my ingenuity and hard work. Everyone needs to go and work and make money themselves." Qarun liked it when everyone paid attention to him and respected him and asked him for help by begging. Qarun always wanted to say to the needy who asked him, "No," and shout, "Oh, unfortunate ones, get out of the way." Sometimes he would go to the city center with hundreds of riders. He himself was sitting on a couch carried by 4 large elephants, and hundreds of his bodyguards and crew were riding and walking around him with trumpets and drums. When he and his companions passed through the city center, the city was closed and everyone was watching. People were standing in the alleys and on the rooftops, and everyone was longing for Qarun's wealth. There was no one who didn't say, "I wish we were as rich as Qarun. I wish God would give us the wealth of Qarun." Indeed, he had a great share of God's blessings. There were smarter people who said, God's reward for the believers will be much greater than the wealth of Qarun. God gives the best wealth to the patient people. Time passed until one day Prophet Musa went to Qarun's palace and said, "Oh Qarun, aren't you a believer?" "What is this question you are asking? I am a believer." Prophet Musa said, "If this is the case, you should pay zakat on your property to help the poor. God has commanded you to pay zakat on wealth for the needy." Qarun, who did not expect to hear such a thing from Prophet Musa, said, "Honestly, I have to think a little. I'd better say, I'm not feeling well today. Maybe I could think about zakat tomorrow." When Prophet Musa left the palace of Qarun, Qarun went to his rich friends and said, "Musa first made worship obligatory. We must pay his homes tomorrow." One of the rich asked, "Wow, what should we do now?" Qarun thought for a moment and said, "I have an idea, but you must accompany me." The rich said, "Don't be afraid, Qarun. We all stand behind you like a mountain. Just tell us what to do." "This is the plan," Qarun said. "I know a notorious woman who can lie like a pebble." They went to that infamous woman. Qarun threw a bag of money in front of the woman and said, "Take these coins and repeat what we said." Sharara took the bag of coins and laughed like the devil, saying, "As you wish, my master." The next day, Qarun and his friends went to see Prophet Musa. "Oh Musa, I brought my friends so that you may speak to us a little about faith and the commandments of God." Qarun said, "We want to know what we should be punished for." Prophet Musa said, "Qarun, everyone should be equal before the commands of God. Even I should be punished if I sin." Qarun called Sharara. Sharara came out from behind the wall, and he said, "Oh Musa, this woman came to us and said you said disgusting and ugly things about her. Why did you do that? You're such a mean person." Prophet Musa said to the woman, "Swear by God and tell the truth." Sharara trembled and cried when she heard the words of Prophet Musa. She said, "Oh Musa, forgive me. I swear by God this was Qarun's plan." Then she put a bag of gold coins in front of him and said, "This is the reward they gave me. They asked me to slander you. Forgive me. We all know that you're the prophet of God." Prophet Musa prostrated and praised God. Qarun and his friends were amazed to see this and left. The people who were there also prostrated and praised God. One day, when Qarun was sitting with his friends in his palace, he said, "I've never been like this before. I don't know why. I have had a strange anxiety since morning. My heart is pounding and cold sweat is all over my body." Suddenly, the palace of Qarun began to tremble. The roof of the palace cracked. "Earthquake, run!" cried Qarun. Everyone was running, but the intensity of the earthquake was so great that they fell to the ground. The pillars of the palace hall fell to the ground and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The beautiful birds inside the cages were screaming and hitting the walls of the cages. The palace servants were shouting and running everywhere. The screaming women tried to get themselves out of the palace. Qarun hugged a bag of gold and diamonds and ran to the porch of the palace. There was no earthquake outside, and everyone was walking around calmly. He realized that the earthquake had only come to his palace. Then he said to himself, "Musa was right." Qarun wanted to repent, but it was too late. There was a terrible noise in the palace. When Qarun returned, he saw the earth split open, a great rift that swallowed everything in its path and came forward. Qarun, who still had a few gold bags in his hand, jumped back and forth until suddenly a gap opened under his feet, and in an instant, Qarun fell. The people standing outside the palace saw everything with their own eyes. They saw how the palace, with all its grandeur and splendor, was returned to dust, and Qarun and hundreds of his men, screaming, fell into the great rift of the earth. Moments later, when the entire palace and Qarun fell into the crevice of the earth, the crevice, which was like a deep door, closed and became a barren, grassy land. The spectators were shocked and praised God.